How will the VAT impact, and also what independent schools contribute, was the topic on which the debate was held in the House of Lords, and Lord Lexington led it, and all of us here attended it. We have some more members as well, but they are coming. But let's do a little debrief on what really came of it and what people feel here. Here, principal and proprietor of a school,
James Wilding.
Yeah, yes,
nice to
James
see you.
Wilding. Again, tell me, what is it that you've taken from this over 3-hour debate?
Well, first of all, it was a pretty good debate, and there were a House of Lords packed with Labour, Conservative, Liberal and crossbench peers, and everybody was clearly deeply concerned about a January 2025 imposition of VAT, including the most strongly spoken in favour of Labour policy because it's in their manifesto, but clearly wrong-footed even the Labour peers at the imposition from January. I think what was really remarkable was the grasp the Lords had of the detail, because their constituents and their friends and their head teachers and their proprietors have written to them to give them chapter and verse about the military, about the SEN children, about the specifically talented dancers, singers, musicians in those programmes. But my major takeaway for it was the House of Lords' final statement by Lord Lexington was to ask Baroness Smith and Malvern to carefully consider what she'd heard, and particularly about the completely challenging date of the 1st of January, because we heard about military families now going off to the Falklands, going off to serve our country, whose children don't know what school they're going to be in because they don't know as parents that they can afford those fees. And it's all very well for Baroness Smith to say, well, we don't know, but finger in the air, they'll probably suck it up. Was just outrageous in terms of the planning that we as schools and parents and families and communities bring to looking after children's education. Because actually that's why we're here. We're here to support the brilliant work that all schools do for children, the partnerships we have with our state schools and communities, and the idea that you can just break up that pact and say, it won't matter, we'll work it out, and we want to carry on working out with...
And we have worked it out.
And
put
we have
everything worked out.
Extra tax on our parents, as if it's not a tax on parents, it's going to be on their bills.
Indeed.
Anyway, it's lovely. I mean, Nicholas from the north, we're a different part of the world. I mean, Nick, you know that your parents are as normal, hard-working parents as mine, aren't they?
Yes, from Stratford, and Nick is from representing a grammar school there. But what really also was quite interesting was that they were coming from personal stories, isn't it? Now, Nick, take your point on, right, and then probably.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredibly emotive and personal issue, and the reality is that we do have families, as many of the Lords were themselves recounting, whereby they are working more than a job each, the parents, to be able to try and fund their way through supporting their children to have an independent school education. And amongst those, people are thinking these are the doctors and the lawyers. They're not. They might be, I can give examples of shopkeepers, we've got taxi drivers, we've got people who are working in the local pubs who are doing this, who are cleaners themselves in the hospitals and so on. So they are very real families that actually we can all relate to and all understand. And one of the big arguments that the Labour the Education Secretary was saying was that if the fees have gone up by 24% over the last 14 years, then there's no reason why they can't absorb another 20% just like that. And that's the great frustration. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and it's incredibly frustrating because no one can just think that's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But apparently they do. Apparently they do.
Your takeaway, one.
I just feel that this is a government that do not want to engage with us, and that is the great frustration. Even their peers are in favour of this being reviewed, but the government itself, regrettably and sadly, seem to have no inclination to do the same.
Indeed, and actually even the Labour peers were interrupting when finally the minister was talking and giving the same spiel about IFS, the fixation on IFS, the saying same thing for SEND children. They were again pointing to the education plan, health and education plan. No change, absolutely, despite all the emotive stuff.
Well, I think what was fascinating was that the only person following a party script was Baroness Smith. Every single other Lord
Was
Winston,
engaging with the
Lord
conversation.
Winston engaged with the conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
if ever there's a strong Labour supporter, it's Lord Winston. And he was so clear about that. I mean, we had legendary figures from the House and speaking with passion about their personal experience, either themselves disabled by their own medical issues and going to an independent school because that could provide the support. We're hearing those blue lights and I think we
Yes.
feel a bit like that ourselves.
Yeah, we will be quiet. But let me come to you, Tony. We're doing it live
We
as
are
we
live.
speak. So Tony has led Education Not Taxation. I have been working closely with him. You have been every step of the way since October 2023. What is your takeaway, Tony? How good, bad, or grey you feel?
Well, I'm of a mixed mind, really. So first off, we spent 3 hours in the debate hearing lords across the political spectrum highlighting their own concerns about the flaws and the impacts that this policy are going to have. Children with special education needs, children from military backgrounds, children in the performing arts and others. We had also heard about the impact of children being moved from their schools, A-levels and GCSEs. And so I felt for about 95% of this debate, I felt like there was a lot of consensus and I felt moved that maybe there's a change in tone. And then when Baroness Smith came back and she just kept parroting the same Labour talking points that we've had before, and it just seemed completely tone deaf. And I think honestly, as a parent with a special education needs child, the one takeaway that I personally had, and this is my own personal opinion, is that Labour don't recognize special education needs as real, as legitimate. I personally came away with it as saying, well, children like with ADHD or dyslexia or others, it's all in their head, they can't get on with it, it's their problem. That was the overwhelming message. So they just showed no concern of children in independent schools moving to state schools and actually compounding the problem of under-resource. They had no problem with that. So that also is a message for state school parents as well. That is where I left in the greatest of disbelief. There was also finally another point on this, is more than once we were told, well, we're just the 1 in 10, actually 93, the 7%
Yep,
instead of the
yep,
93.
yep.
The 1 in 10, so we don't matter.
One doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't matter, it's for the greater good. We are a sacrifice for the greater good, is the message that I heard. So that was very
Very
illuminating to
quickly,
me.
sorry, but very quickly, are you disenchanted enough, or how are you going to take your next step, Tony, for the campaign?
That's a really good question, I think. So we continue to make our case as parents. We continue to write to Baroness Smith for sure, and continue to write to MPs as well about the effects that this is actually having.
So the fight continues.
The fight absolutely continues.
Brilliant, thank you. Kate here with me, Kate Taylor. You, Kate, you're the head of...
I'm the chair of governors at St. Piran's Prep School in Maidenhead.
Yeah, and you have to break the news to these people and be part of breaking the news, which has already broken actually to the parents,
Yeah.
saying that they have to, give 20%, 15%, whatever the schools are giving out. What do you feel after this debate? What is your takeaway?
Well, I have to agree with Tony that for the majority of the debate, it was really encouraging to hear Lords speaking with authority about all the issues that we've been banging on about for weeks, months, years. I kind of have the feeling that we're not being listened to still. I took encouragement from the Labour peers that did seem to have real reservations, some more so than others. And I hope that will just filter through into the House of Commons and that they can make some sort of impact with the MPs. But I have to say, like Tony, fairly disillusioned with the attitude that the 1% don't matter. the SEND children, and also something that I've felt really passionate about is the January 1st implementation, which
Terrible.
is completely rushed, totally unnecessary, and I don't feel, despite 3 hours, very coherent arguments as to why they just needed to take a breath and do some impactful studying and give us a chance to be ready, that they just swept that aside and gave us the same usual answers. So,
Kate, very quickly, you're part of the heads bursars
yes,
group.
chairs, heads and bursars group.
Yes. What are you going to do next?
Well, we're going to continue to push about the consultation period, although we are rapidly running out of time. We only have 10 days left. We're going to continue to push about the unfairness of how we're being treated. I think that's what we as a sector need to collaborate upon, and try and push back on time limits, unfairness, and give us the right opportunity to
make our case.
To make our case.
Yeah, indeed. So what Kate is mentioning is the survey or the consultation that is happening with the schools on behalf of Office of Budget Responsibility,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And that has been given
Treasury,
only till, and the Treasury given only till 15th of September to carry out this consultation when the schools have just opened. So just about a week to assess the lives of people and of children, 600,000 children. And this is 1 week has been given, 7 days has been given to after the opening of the school. I mean,
At a
for
very
this
busy
consultation.
time. My school has opened today. I would say it's a consultation for the schools, but I would impress upon everybody involved in the private education sector, the parents, the teachers, the schools, the governors, to engage in the consultation process. If we can't get it put back, let's just make sure we give them as much detail about why this is
not
unfair.
fair. And very quickly, what will this consultation do? I mean, this was referred to in the debate as well, that OBR is doing the consultation. What impact could it have?
Well, there's the Treasury consultation, which is our reaction. I think the OBR is about an independent financial assessment. That is going to be done and delivered at the time of the budget, so when the finance bill is put forward. That's an argument for actually waiting to get the information to be able to make a fair assessment.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate. Very quickly, since I was in there as well, my one takeaway is, of course, the fact that despite all that people have been saying, despite the fact that so much was shared from the heart by the lords and the baronesses, and a lot of the lords, I think 3 or 4 lords, spoke against their own party's policy. Labour, lords from the Labour Party, and they even intervened their own minister when she had finished her statement about this policy not being fair, and yet what we come out with is just the same script. So everyone spoke from the heart, but the minister spoke from the script. So what I mean by the minister was the one who was replying to all the people who had raised concerns about the VAT on private schools. And one takeaway is that actually our children, we as a parent, do not count in the eyes of the Labour government, the present Labour government. But we continue to fight, we continue to urge and say, please listen to us. We have dropped a letter to 10 Downing Street, and we really hope that Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, will listen to our concerns as well, because we are also part of his country that he is ruling. Thank you. Just a thought.